Buddies. We're super excited. Thank you guys for submitting. There were so many submissions to go through. And don't worry, we're going to be doing this on a more regular basis. So if we don't review your portfolio today, we do have it, and we will, consider that for our next session with some awesome guests. Speaking of which, how often do these typically occur? Right now, I think we're aiming to do once a month, but maybe more in the future. And speaking of guests, we have some really awesome ones today, and I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves as I pull up our portfolios that we will be reviewing today. And for those of you that are here and the portfolios you submitted, we will be reviewing. We'll give you about 30 seconds before the start of each review to, ask for any particular feedback that you're looking for, and just share your thoughts a bit with us before we get into the review. We'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes per portfolio. So let's get started. If Ben, maybe you want to introduce yourself first, that would be great.
Hey everyone, happy to be back for I think my second portfolio review. My name is Ben. I am an interaction designer, currently with Frog. And I think a nice fun fact about me is that I actually spent my last 3 years designing interfaces for autonomous vehicles. So always happy to nerd out about vehicle interface.
Yeah, that is super cool. And yeah, if you want to hand it off to someone else, that would be great as well.
Yeah, I was going to tag it over to Max.
Hey, I heard my name. Hey, everybody, Maggie. You probably see me around, one of the DB admins. I also kind of help around the server with other stuff. But in real life, I'm a UX designer, currently working at HubSpot. And fun fact about me, currently brewing my own kombucha and playing around with different flavors.
Mad scientist, mad kombucha scientist.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. And then Eugene, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem. Hello, everyone. I'm Eugene Joe. I'm the Director of Product Design at MLSC. I'm a little bit sad that obviously none of the Toronto sports teams are in the playoffs still, but hoping we're going to be able to turn around for next year.
Okay. Well, hopefully the Warriors trade for Siakam. That would be a nice pickup. I don't know if you'd be sad to see him go, but I would like him on board. Well, we're really happy to have you all here. You guys have some great experience, and I'm super excited to share it all with the community. Just for everyone who knows me or who doesn't know me, I'm Jack. I'm content lead at Design Buddies, as well as another admin alongside Mags. And I'll be driving our portfolio review sessions. I'm sharing my screen. So for everyone who wants to tune in, just click on my name to see the session. And with that, we'll get started. We're going to start with Dimple. If you're here, Dimple, can we have one of the admins unmute? Or stay, if you are here and we can't find you yet, if you can comment in the chat, that would be great. Okay, maybe we won't start with Dimple. But I'm pretty sure he will be here. Maybe it's full and he might be on YouTube, so we'll get a check on that. The next portfolio we'll actually start with is Christina Tran. Are you here? Let's see. Christina Tran. Okay, a little slow start, but that's all right. How about Andy Vo? Oh, I just got... Awesome. 1 second. Dimple just DM'd me. We'll start with you, Andy, and then we'll come back to Dimple. let's find Andy in the chat so we can unmute. I just found him. Okay. You should be able to speak now, Andy, if you want to share a bit about your portfolio and the kinds of feedback you're looking for, and if there was one particular case study you wanted us to check out, that would be great.
Yeah. Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yep.
hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I'll just introduce myself briefly. My name's Andy. I'm a rising senior at Boston University, studying computer science. And fun fact, prior to, I'd say about a year ago, I didn't know anything about product design or UX design. So really looking forward to getting as much feedback as possible. In terms of any case studies to go over, I'm really just looking forward to like getting as much criticism in terms of like my case study structure and the layout of it. And I think we could just go into the first one. It's the freelancing web design one where I took part in like a web design competition. So feel free to go to that one. And yeah, we could just get started.
Awesome. And just so everyone knows, this portfolio review session, given the limited time constraints, is really to simulate kind of at a first glance portfolio review session. And so we'll start with your about page, and then we'll move on from there. Amazing reviewers, if you want to take it over, that would be great.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
All right. Sorry, just taking a quick look to wrap my head around it. I definitely love the personality that's shown here on the about page. The like image turning into a video is super fun. My like assumptions I'm making are that you're super into food, and that I see like your little emojis scattered around, which allow me like this really quick scannability. And I kind of center in on them. Honestly, I'm kind of ignoring the rest of the paragraph. Like wherever I see an emoji, it's kind of pulling my eye right to it. Which I actually don't think is a bad thing, because to me it's the more interesting stuff about you, like the stuff that makes you unique as a person. As opposed to, I don't know, you're kind of talking about being a UX designer. I think it shares a lot of traits with other UX designers. It's not as unique.
One general thing that I find, and it's not just about the about section, but your overall sort of branding for the site. Oftentimes, and I come across a lot of portfolios, so this is a sort of trend that I see. A lot of people go for this like very minimal white type of aesthetic, and the problem with that is that oftentimes when you have everyone sort of do the same thing, you don't stand out. So the general advice that I give when doing portfolio reviews is make sure you're really focusing on a brand that helps you visually stand out first and foremost. That's one of the easiest ways for portfolios to really stick out comparatively to others as well.
Yeah, and the other thing, just be careful with layout. Noticing a little bit of overlap, which is making it hard to read. So always be very conscious of your placement and your breaking points if you can handle those. And if not, if you're constantly running into layout problems, I'd reconsider what platform you're using to host your site.
All great points. Any last notes on this about page before we actually move into the meat of it? All right, let's head over to the work. That little GIF is pretty cool. GIF or GIF? Let me know in the chat. All right, so let's check out this ambassador's case study. Does anyone want to chime in?
About the homepage itself before we get
Yeah.
into that? Because
Sure.
I took a quick glance at this before, and there are a couple of quick things that I noticed. One, just like what was said before about sticking out, this like, hello, I'm blank, and then waving hand was on literally every single portfolio that was picked out for us to look at, like legitimately every single one. So, maybe consider switching it up a little bit. What I thought was I did think that the typing and backspacing was fun, but it's like way too slow of an animation. I'm not gonna sit around and wait for it to like come in and out and read all the different things. If you legitimately want people to parse like multiple bits of information about yourself, then I would just take the whole line and animate it differently and have the whole line swapping itself out. So I could notice maybe 2 or 3 little facts about you before diving into things.
I'm also gonna add on to that, and I may get slack for this, but I would challenge people to stay away from emojis because I'm seeing them everywhere, and it gets to the point of like, okay, so everybody's doing the emoji stuff now. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I agree. I did like them in the about page again because they like pulled my eye right to those little factoids, but they are quite overdone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if you created this graphic here on the right side on your homepage, I feel like you have a lot of visual potential to create something that could fill in the blank for this emoji waving. So it'd be kind of cool to see you flex that side as well. It would add a little flair to your portfolio. All right. Any more notes on this homepage before we hop in
I
to
think
his case study?
the only other thing I have to say is take out that big in progress thing at the top. It's literally just blocking me getting to your actual work. Once it's done, put it up there. If it's not done, don't put it up there.
Okay, yes, to add on to that, if you're not putting anything that's clickable, get it out of a portfolio. If you're gonna put something that's in progress, at least show a draft or something, but never put like a coming soon. Like it's really not adding any value at all.
Okay, great
Yep.
points, great points. Any last notes before we hop in?
I'd say again, just be careful with consistency and layouts and accessibility, please. Like just make sure that colors are the contrast are not making things hard to read. Kind of noticed that in a few of them going down, especially that blue one.
Good points, good points.
I'm
Okay,
doing a real quick scroll. Sorry, I swear this is the last thing. And I also want to point out that it's mostly good. Like we're really just nitpicking here and kind of pulling out some little things. Like it looks attractive.
Yep.
I just don't want things to not work that I'm trying to click on. But the thing that I noticed is for your other the bump call project, you have like design intern and then like director of product design, and that is just so like it doesn't track with each other, right?
Yeah.
I know it's probably a small startup thing, but your experience as director of product design at whatever this thing is in my opinion not at all comparable to what it would actually mean to be a director.
Yeah, that one stood out to me as well. That's just very confusing.
Mhm.
Kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point on just transparency and being kind of a little self-conscious and honest with where you're at. Okay, let's hop in to this case study. And I'm gonna slowly scroll. So if there's at any point you guys want me to stop or you just wanna get a little taste for it first, and then we can go back to where you want, just let me know, reviewers.
And I was gonna let you scroll all the way, but you're scrolling so slow.
Okay, I'll scroll faster.
No, I just already have thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Something I noticed right at the top for your team is that you just put people's names, and that means literally nothing to me. It gives me no idea of what type of specialty you worked with, like how your role related to other people's roles. They're just names, which it's nice that you would put your teammates' names. Maybe people would want to talk to them too, but maybe you put like a dash and then their role, or put the role dash their name, just so that you can include both. But then kind of reading it a little bit, you're kind of complaining about your teammates, which is a bad look, in my opinion. Like, you were like, oh, they were really busy doing other stuff, so they kind of made me do most of it. Which again, just like point out what their roles were, and if all they did was help with like some of the research stuff, and you did most of the development and design, then just say that they like don't say that they did do something, say that they did do something, is maybe a better way to put it.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. Just always having a positive approach to this, especially this is such a team centric industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes people are busy. Sometimes people like have a kid and leave the project. It happens. It's okay.
Just going up a little bit on the information architecture.
Mm.
My suggestion here is whenever you can provide some sort of visual rather than kind of like listing it out like this, because it's somewhat difficult to read through all this.
Yeah.
Or like a map or like some sort of diagram. I always suggest going down that route.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think anytime you can express your solution or your iteration or where you're at in your design at this point with some visual language, that just helps with scannability, readability. It shows a little more of your process in a more complete way too.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Max.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, that's such a great point. I think portfolios, you need to think about who's looking at these, and the typical amount of time that they're gonna look at these. It's a few minutes, right? They just quickly scan. So the challenge is for anybody who's building portfolios, anything that you've written down, what's like one or two sentences? Does it even need to be words? Can you just show it visually? And whenever you have a lot of information, highlight what are the things you want people to take away or like quickly capture while they're skimming the page, right? Like, we're seeing some bold here and there and a little bit of color, but get creative on show us, don't tell us. Be conscious and aware of people don't spend a lot of time in these pages. So what's the impression you want to leave behind, essentially?
Yeah, I think that's. Please go ahead.
One thing that really sticks out for me is this, like, your demo YouTube video at the bottom, which if I click on it is like 6 minutes long. No one's gonna watch that. I could just flat out say that's not gonna happen. Maybe if you meant, like, you should figure out a way to embed an animation in here if you really want to showcase some of the like functionality or interaction design or page transitions or anything like that. Yeah, just if there's something that you want to highlight in there specifically, then you should make sure that you're actually highlighting it.
And then just one thing around like general case studies. So oftentimes, most people start off with like a problem statement, which you did. But I think it was the problems statement didn't go too far in depth in terms of what the actual problems you're trying to solve. So this is more around talking about they just need a new website, but talking about things like and again, you sort of have like a headline there, which is great, but if you talked about things like, like 50% of students are dropping off at a certain point, or there's issues with like some sort of like marketing funnel, then you can be very specific about how you're sort of telling the story of how you went about solving that problem. And then that brings me to my final point around talking about impact. So this is something that I see a lot of people missing in their portfolio. And at the very end of the portfolio, you want to talk about not just the launch of this thing and what the final designs look like, but also what exactly happened after launch, right? And the impact to the actual users at the end of the day. Oftentimes we put too much of a focus on the launch and kind of stop there, but that's not really the end of it. It's actually when you have a net impact on on the problem that you're trying to solve in the first place.
Yes, those are such great points. I would love to see more metrics in here. I think that would be a way to help scan, because this is fairly long. Each case study is a pretty long, you're putting so much work into it. So if you can see some quantifiable impact there, as well as kind of breaking down what this problem really means, and maybe you define what that is through just starting to build this new website for them. You'll uncover more problems that need to be solved. I think that would be really helpful. And one last thing I want to add before we move on is you have these sections separated on the left side with these big subtext headers. It'd be great, I think, to implement. It's nice to have this line, but sometimes I feel like this isn't enough. If I'm just scrolling through this really fast, it can be a little hard to find each spot to go to. Like maybe I'm looking for the personas right away or key takeaways. If you introduce some color to these, that might be helpful, as well as I know on some sites, specifically Webflow, you're able to add a little table of contents to help readers, move to where they really want to find that information. Any final notes before we move on?
Hot tip. I don't know if other programs do it, but I do this all the time. Put your content, like your wording, in Grammarly or something that gives you a word count. And if it's hitting the 10-minute read, rethink and distill the most important takeaways, because 10-minute read is a way too long for a case study.
Yeah, just to expand on that a little bit, the detailed view of this case study is for the actual interview itself, right? But on a website, going back to Meg's point about, we only have a few minutes to read through this, so you want to make sure that it's dense with actual information that we need, and it's not too long.
Awesome, thank you guys. A final thing that I'm just thinking of is it might be helpful to, as you implement more metrics-based impact into your case study, if you put that at the top as well as the bottom, not the same information, but I think it's helpful to see impact right away, just maybe even in where it says your contribution. Okay, great. Thank you, Andy. Do you have any last words before we move on to the next portfolio? Let me go ahead.
Maybe more of a question I want to pose to the other mentors, but what if they don't have metrics?
Yeah, I noticed you there was a line in there saying something around you weren't able to get too much information, but that goes back to this idea of really understanding the problem before you actually start solutioning, right? So in this case, you're not really creating a website for the sake of a website. You're doing it to actually solve a problem with their existing solution as it stands now. And it might not necessarily be in the form of hard quantifiable metrics, right? It may be more qualitative, and that's okay too. But I do think it needs to start from a place of understanding and really falling in love with the problem before you move on to solution.
Awesome, thanks. Any last words, Andy, before we move on?
This is really great feedback. Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is one of my first case studies I've ever written, so I'm literally taking everything right now.
Awesome. You did a really good job. It's a great start. I'm excited to see the next iteration. If you're comfortable doing so, you should definitely submit to portfolio review channel in the Design Buddies Discord or on design feedback if you ever want any more quick turnaround feedback on maybe a smaller feature. Okay, great. We're going to go ahead and move to Dimples. All right. Dimple DM'd me, and I'm going to go ahead and unmute you right now. You should be able to chat with us now. Oh, Dimple, can you unmute? Okay. Well, Dimple should be able to unmute himself, but until then, if you're more comfortable typing in the chat, that's something that you can do as well. I think it would be prudent to just get started. And so here we are with Dimples' portfolio, and we'll start with his About Me page. Or hers, sorry. Any thoughts on this About Me page?
I think just similar to the feedback that I had in the previous portfolio, overall brand, right? Again, I see a lot of similarities in terms of like the visual language that a lot of early sort of designers follow, and you want to make sure you have a visual brand that stands out.
I'm kind of seeing some inconsistencies because like you're using a serif typeface for a lot of the navigation elements, but then and for the body copy on like the homepage itself, but then for the About Me, it's a sans serif, and you have this blue color that doesn't like get pulled into this paragraph at all. It gives me the sense that like these things were designed at different times or just not in consideration to each other.
Actually,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that this loaded slightly different on my computer too, so it might be worth testing it on different browsers.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Any about the
I actually noticed that as well, just on mine. I have it pulled up on my screen. But just one sort of comment on imagery. Make sure that if you use an image, you're not kind of doing it a disservice by keeping it that small. I find the placement of it a little weird, and the sizing of it a little weird.
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of just randomly like dropped there.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see your photo. I think at the top, it'd be great to, when I click on an About Me page, get a sense of this person. Maybe you're not comfortable sharing your face, but if you are, I think that's a great plus to have. So blow your face up so we don't have to zoom in to see. Okay, let's move on to the work. I believe she wanted us to check out this Mentor Me page. Let me just briefly see the chat. Okay. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and check out this Mentor Me page, and I will scroll through and y'all will take it over from there.
One thing I'm immediately noticing is those, like how client and duration are pushed to the next line for some reason. Like I think there's something weird happening with your client.
Oh yeah. Jack, your browser just, are you in a weird breakpoint or something?
I mean, it's happening on my end as well on my screen.
Oh really? Okay,
Yeah.
I don't.
It's like
Okay.
again, it's like they accidentally put a line break in right after the T, which again it might not have been you, Dimple. It might be something with like whatever content management system you're using or whatever portfolio builder you're using. But yeah, that immediately stood out to me as just a little like attention to detail thing. Yeah, see, I like that you have embedded animations here.
Yeah,
It makes
they
it
look.
a lot easier.
Yeah, look really good.
Yeah, I think when you can implement this, especially to just show a particular feature or even like a before and after getting some feedback on, how users have interacted with it in your design solution, I think this is a really effective feature or thing to include in your portfolio. Super digestible.
I also really like how you've broken up the content. So yeah, from a digestibility point of view, you've used spacing and layout in a way where it's a lot easier to digest.
Agreed.
The gray backgrounds help also to separate out sections. So I can tell very quickly as I'm scrolling that I'm kind of arriving at a new chunk of information.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The layout itself, you know, the important things, it has the right visual treatment, and the way the layout is spread out, it gives you like enough time to just skim it over, and you kind of, it's not overwhelming.
Something super nitpicky that I'm gonna pull out is if you scroll back up to the top, the spacing between those 4 screens is not equal.
Oh no.
That last screen is just a little bit too close. Yeah.
I can't unsee it.
Yeah,
now.
now you can't unsee it. It'll never go away. So it's okay. Like mistakes happen, but definitely fix it.
Noticing
There's
some of
certainly
that on that process graphic as well.
Mhm.
I think it's a spacing of the icons, and then in relationship to the I guess
Oh,
body copy below.
yeah.
Yeah, the one thing you should generally think about when it comes to portfolios is you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye for details, right? Because you spent months doing the work that's in this case study, and you want to make sure that the portfolio is actually doing it justice, right? I see oftentimes like these little details that are missed, and it seems like a lot of people don't put the same level of detail and attention to the portfolios, and that to me is a disservice for the work that you've done for it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like that's something that's often kind of unspoken about portfolios in general, just the amount of work that goes into a project based on or in comparison to the fine detail or granular work that you'll put into your portfolio, like this small spacing. Like if a hiring manager, recruiter, or someone on the design team just happened to, this is the first thing they see, that could potentially be a negative, but it of course doesn't speak to the quality of your work within it. One thing that stood out to me was I love that you have all these quantitative results and qualitative results as well. I'm wondering if there's a way to make this a little maybe stand out more or be presented in a more visually interesting way. I might just skim over the 40 results, 5 participants, 75%, blah, blah, blah. And I think those are important numbers to highlight, especially this qualitative results. And Mags, chime in, please.
No, I was gonna say, I think that's a good point. I think at one point we hit when we're building case studies, you get to a point where, okay, I think I know what I want to say, and then challenge yourself. How do I visually represent that? Or should I, start asking these questions beyond the, okay, I'm done. The little details sometimes really, really matter and will make a world of difference as we're seeing it here.
Yeah, I'd say that you're highlighting the methods a lot more than the results, where it should really be the opposite because the results are the more important part. Like you'll use a lot of different methods, a lot of different times in your career, and being able to distill insights out of them is a lot more important.
Yeah.
I also, sorry, go ahead.
No, just to add to that point, I think you have to look at your case study as a way to tell a story. And if you think about it from that perspective and from a storytelling narrative, you want to position and really highlight the things that really sell that story. Going back to this idea of like having impact, which I don't see here, and I think you've started really nicely with understanding the problem quite well. Understanding and looping back in how it solves the issue. Completes that story.
Yeah, that is a great point. I would love to see a little bit more storytelling or maybe fluid transitions between that important information. Sometimes I think the storytelling is all left for these key learnings that get added to the bottom. But there is a way to implement that throughout to kind of weave together your narrative of your design process from conceptualization to your design solution.
One more thing to just sorry, Ben. One more thing to just add to that. I'm going to post a link to Probably one of the best case study portfolios I've seen. It's from a company called Tian and Lax that used to exist. There used to be a big agency in Toronto, and they got bought up by Facebook. This is an example that I sent to every single portfolio review mentee as one of the best examples that I've ever come across.
Awesome. Thanks for the resource.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to take a look at that after this event.
Yeah, me too.
But
Yeah,
what
same.
I wanted, I'm really curious now. What I wanted to highlight for storytelling is, like up at the top again, right underneath your process diagram, you have this really bold help people on their career change journey, blah blah blah. But then you talk about why you chose this as a personal project, and that's what I find way more interesting. Like you talking about your own struggle, changing careers, not knowing the right path to follow, and wanting to support people that when they're changing careers, and that is like the way more impactful story. That's again, you're like inverting the hierarchy from where it should be. You want to highlight like your personal choice to make a you're making an independent choice about a problem that you see and the decision to explore it, and that's really powerful.
That is such a great point. When I was first crafting my earliest iterations of my portfolio, I was kind of afraid to include or like my own particular contributions and really outline that, especially in a story-based way. But this is so powerful. And I've had mentors who have pushed me to include that information, and it really ties together the whole project for me. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ben.
Maybe the other reviewers might disagree with this, but to me, the I is the most important part in your portfolio, especially as a junior, because you have this very broad set of skills and you aren't quite specialized yet. And frankly, there's a whole lot of people that share similar skills. So the I and the specific viewpoint that you're bringing to things, I think is one of the most important parts of making you stand out. And I think that's why Eugene is also hitting on personal branding a lot, because it's all about how to make it so that you specifically seem like the person that I need on my team, or the person that I want to work next to for extended periods of time and spend 8 hours a day with.
I don't disagree, because we are, whenever you're looking at portfolio, you are judging the person's skills, and you want to make sure what did you contribute. It's okay to be clear as to, I work with these people and I collaborated on certain things, but then your case study should be very centered around what was your contribution, and it should be full of eyes.
Awesome. I think that's a really great ending point. Dimple, I hope you learned a lot from this. I certainly did. I'm excited to check out that resource that Eugene dropped in the chat. That's very appealing to me, especially the best one he's ever seen. That's crazy.
One of the best ones.
Oh, okay. One of the best ones. All right. Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you for your submission, Dimple. I hope you learned a lot. And the next one, Christine Tran, are you here? Hopefully you're not on the YouTube. I don't have that pulled up. Okay. We're going to move on for now. Melinda Wise, are you here? Yeah, the pressure's on.
Will
Okay.
the real Melinda please stand up?
Yeah, seriously. We'll keep moving. Christian Garsk. I'm probably butchering that. Forgive me, please. Christian, are you here? Another hit and miss. Okay. We're going to go ahead and review Christine Tran's portfolio. I think there's a lot to be said here that could be useful and helpful and beneficial for the community. And we'll just start with this homepage before jumping into about. What do you all notice right away? What sticks out to you?
I think one of the things that always bugs me is the hovering to show information. because people, this is taking a guess. Like, what am I getting myself into? And do you really want to leave it to chance, right? You only get one first good impression. You want to make sure you're upfront as to what is going to live within that. Because if I'm looking at your portfolio and I find something that's, again, I'm kind of quickly skimming around. I found something that's of interest. Don't make me hunt and peck, right? Like, just put that information up front.
Something that I actually like is the sidebar approach to the about me, but more importantly, the fact that the work is like right there, because I really have the option about which to engage and which not to engage with. And generally, with a super quick read, I'm just like looking to get that instant idea of whether your work's good enough before I start digging into like the about me and the who you are. So I like being able to just get right to the work, like give it a glance over, determine whether I'm further interested or not, and then dive into a bit more of who you are. But it also highlights one of my pet peeves, which is really the second sentence where you're like, I design purposeful experiences through research and data, which is just like what a designer should be doing. It is not unique to you. It is just literally what everyone should be doing. That is the base requirement. So it's not unique to pull out or really useful to highlight, in my opinion.
One cool thing that also sticks out here is, and I haven't really come across this before, is this like short on time. You have summaries of your case studies on your Instagram, which is pretty cool. Maybe that might be something you want to also implement as part of your website.
Yeah, I've never seen this before either, and I thought it was like a really interesting way of presenting the work as well.
I
Okay.
was annoyed that it didn't hyperlink off to it. Like I saw the check out my Instagram, and then I had to go look for the Instagram icon.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, like because I'm reading along and I see the check out my Instagram, and I just want to click that link.
Right. I would just love to be able to click Instagram right there. And that's something that could be implemented really easily. Another thing that kind of stood out to me is I haven't seen a lot of case studies that use these mock-ups like this for the thumbnails. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe I'm just haven't seen a lot of case studies, but that was new to me. And let's go ahead and hop into the about.
Wait, I have two opinions about those mock-ups. First, I have a lot of opinions, you know.
Strong opinions held loosely.
Yeah. I like that they're not just floating screens. I think I really like that you went and tried to like find actual photos to put your stuff into. But what I don't like is that they feel super generic. They have no like interesting art direction, nothing that feels like it gives me an indication as to a brand. Again, I like that they're in person, but they're really boring photos at the end of the day.
Or context, right? Sometimes it'd be cool to see like an action, like if I'm commuting and if it's a commuting app, like put me on a subway or something like that.
Or the cooking app, find a stock photo or someone has their phone out near a cutting board with veggies on it or something, right?
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Context is king. I do appreciate that at least they're high quality as well, though. So here we are. We have this kind of brief about me that's on the homepage on the left, and it's still there. And now we have this on the right.
I do find it a little bit weird that it's still there.
That was my initial inclination as well. I was assuming that this would slide over to the left or have some kind of aspect to it like that. But I do.
I also. No, go ahead. It's all you starting first.
Sure. I was just going to say, I do kind of appreciate that this is to the point, even though I do agree with you about this line, I design purposeful experiences. I kind of appreciate that this new About Me page is a little more personal and story driven.
Yeah.
Is that static coming from me? Or can you all hear that?
That's you.
Okay. I just didn't want to. I wanted to make sure it wasn't being broadcasted. Ben, take it away.
Okay. And by the way, I'm glad that apparently y'all aren't hearing some crazy barking noises in the background because my dogs are going nuts right now downstairs.
Mm.
But I just wish a little bit of the story was in that sidebar for that first read. Just a little bit more reference to you being an educator and how that's informed, maybe how that informs your approach to UX. That actually reminds me of something on the first portfolio we reviewed, where in his little description of himself, he said that he was passionate about accessibility, and then the case study really didn't say anything at all about accessibility, which to me is like a real big red flag. I hope you're still here to hear that first person we reviewed. But if you're saying something about yourself that is related to how you approach design, you should follow up on it.
One thing to sort of be a little nitpicky here, the images aren't the same size, so it kind of, I think the bottom 3 are, but then the top 2 are all different sizes. The consistency is a good practice for things like this.
And they also feel small. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're gonna put a picture, don't put a small picture. Blow
Yeah,
it
we
up.
want to
Blow
see
it
it.
up. Blow it up. Be proud. You know.
We don't want to use your 2 fingers to zoom in on the trackpad like me. Okay, let's hop into a case study. I think it'd be great to just stick with this mobile application and new social app, hybrid friendship and event app. So what instantly stands out to me is there's just a lot of text. It's pretty text heavy. I would love to see more visual language, especially at the start.
I would also second that, and the layouts all over. Like there are some floating things that they don't align, and it just feels all over the place. So the layout needs to be tightened up substantially. Like you have one columns and 2 columns, and you have a floating text somewhere and a floating image somewhere else.
Yeah, one thing that I'm noticing about the sort of length of this is it is fairly lengthy, in my opinion. But a way to sort of combat this, going back to the second portfolio, is maybe play around with the layout or some of the visuals to help break it up into more digestible chunks, because it is a lot of scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really hone in on what's necessary to telling your story of your design solution here. I would love to see if these are the final your final work right here. Bring these up to the top. Give us a little hint of what's to come and how you got to where you are. These are a lot of videos. Just one final note on this as I'm scrolling through. It'd be great, in the last portfolio, Dimples, we saw those embedded in those GIFs or GIFs. I didn't see the chat yet, so I don't know. I think that is a more effective.
MP4s are way better than GIFs. For the record.
Yeah, maybe an MP4.
I think there's extended discussion about that at the Ask Mentors or Career Questions channel right now.
I see. Well,
Shameless
something
plug for those discussions.
Embedded that's just on a loop, I think would be helpful. Or plays when we scroll down. Like this feels a little overwhelming for me. I don't know how much of these I would watch. They are relatively short, a minute 40. I would try to make that 30 seconds max, maybe. If you're going to include these videos, especially if you have so many. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I see 4 YouTube videos in a row, and I'm like, nah. I'm going to be like, I'm not going to click on that.
Yeah, you just have to remember, we only have a few minutes to review each portfolio, so you don't want us spending all of our time watching the videos either.
Especially if I've already looked through like all of this text content and I've already scrolled through like so many things. I think one thing for me is this really feels like a wireframe to me. It doesn't feel like a final design. I'm really not sure if that's intentional or not. Like, again, there's so much content here that I'm not sure if there's any point that you're saying, hey, this only stalled out at the wireframe, or that you're presenting this as high fidelity, in which case, if you are, then I think it really needs to be bumped up. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, I think the main takeaways here are to better communicate where you are at in your design process. If you just like finished around, or finished for now around wireframes, or if this is going to be taken further, clean up the structure and really hone in on what's necessary to telling your story here, because it does feel lengthy. And
Oh,
maybe
those
bring
QR
up,
codes are just a big no. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to scan those.
I think this is just an example of one too, so
Well,
Oh.
that's a
they
little
have it
confusing.
again underneath, and they tell you to scan it for the low fidelity. Yeah.
Oh.
I
Yeah,
mean, you
if
do
you
provide
can,
the links, but I'm also probably not going to click on the links.
yeah, the more you can embed the work in here, or like a clickable prototype in here, or just like what we saw with Dimple, those really quick videos, I think the better. The less work for your recruiter or hiring manager, or whoever may be looking at your portfolio, to gain that really important information or see how it really flows, the better. Awesome. Any final notes on this one?
Yeah, I mean, oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Okay. I'm seeing a bit of the commentary in chat too, and personally, I also am someone who really likes visuals, and I think that like visuals are the thing that we, as human beings, like they attract us, they attract our eye. There's something that you like pulls you in, and it is legitimate that some people are less strong at visuals and some people are more strong at visuals, but I do think that like it has that book jacket appeal, or it needs that book jacket appeal, and to me this does not. It really doesn't pull me in. Nothing is like grabbing my eyes and making me want to look at it, and I think that's a definite weakness.
And I think it's a combination of things, right? It's not like this is like terrible to the eyes or anything. It's just there's just so much going on, and there's no good layout, and then there's a mid fidelity type of design, and it's kind of adding on to the this hurts on a visual level.
Yeah, I would put this person in a like not a like I am not going to have them do any visual design bucket at my company.
Okay, so there's a lot to digest there. And you don't have to be a visual designer to be able to improve the layout or how you present your information. You can do so just with kind of a highlighted colored background. You can, invest in seeing different forms of hierarchy. Certainly, I don't think this kind of layout is working for you, but as you remove more information to really what's necessary, I think that'll be helpful in forming the layout as well. Okay, I hope that's been helpful. Christine, if you're here, thank you for submitting. I think this is a really great start. I do actually really love your homepage, and excited to see where you go from here. So since Melinda and Christian aren't here, let's see if Nathaniel is around. Nathaniel Abrea, are you with us today? Oh, Christian's here. Okay, great. If someone could go ahead and unmute Christian. It doesn't look like you might be in the... Yeah, okay. If you're just in the chat, that's all right. If you could briefly send us some feedback or a particular case study you'd like us to go over for our final portfolio, that would be great. Otherwise, we'll just hack away. Okay, I'll take that yes as a just go for it. So here's Christian's portfolio. And let's briefly go over the homepage before we hop into about, maybe check out experiments because that sounds intriguing. And then we'll finish off with a case study of our choosing.
So I'm gonna say the same thing I've said about a few of the other homepages. I think again, just like the visual sort of aesthetic and the brand, very similar to a lot of portfolios that I see. So to me, this sort of blends in with hundreds of other portfolios I'm gonna have to review during a day.
I do like the type choice and the blue highlights on
Yep.
the images. Those are fun, and I think that these images have a bit more personality than the previous ones. So
Yeah,
I
they definitely
appreciate that. And the screens that you chose to showcase also, I feel like, tell me a bit more about what's going on in the project itself.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
to sort of talk about like that blue, I think, my suggestion to folks that sort of sit in, have picked this visual style is, go very bold, right? Very bright. Highlight the things that are sort of uniquely you, through visual language. And I think, you have some of that here, but it's sort of hidden, and it's you should bring that up more upfront.
uniquely blue, some might say. Okay, and that's my one bad pun for the day.
One thing is I'm kind of confused by whatever this like background image is behind the high there, like behind whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know what to think here.
Yeah,
Maybe it
I
feels
sup-
weirder for me because my screen is so wide that I see like white edges on the edges of
Oh.
that,
Yeah.
and I don't like that. It's not
Yeah.
seamless. It looks a bit better on your screen where it is.
Well,
seamless.
if I drag my browser out,
Yeah.
that comes into play. That is a good point.
Yeah,
I
and I
suppose it
don't-
is just to add some visually interesting element, but yeah, take it away.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't mind that on the project, that the project ones have that white edge, but this is such a subtle background that it's a very hard edge against that white, and it doesn't work.
My critique here is I'm wondering if this big block of text can really be translated into one sentence and enlarged. And then again, we have seen, I think, in every portfolio so far today, this hi there with the wavy emoji. Maybe there's a more interesting or unique way to present that information. And I also just want to go ahead and echo what Mag said for the last portfolio. I'm not too much of a fan of hovering over it to see the information. And yet when I do with this, I just get the name. So it'd be great to have maybe a sentence that says what it's about as well. All right, let's hop into, why don't we change it up? We'll go with these experiments. Ooh, this is cool.
Yeah, this is way more interesting to me than anything else that I've seen so far.
Interesting. I think I don't know how I feel about just no context in the gallery. I could go either way. I could like a little bit of context behind these projects, but I also just kind of like it as a experiment dump. But if there was some context to better explain what this was associated with, I think that would be kind of cool. It could even be just something like, oh, I don't know, I was experimenting with the animation process behind this or something like that. But if it's a part of a larger project, it would be cool to understand what that is. Okay, let's hop into about.
I really like the sort of second paragraph there. I think, it really talks a lot about your core sort of beliefs and your I guess mission statement in a lot of ways, and it talks to your character, which is great.
In the third paragraph, I can see a clear synchronicity with your experiments page, which is good.
That is an interesting point that you've brought up, Ben. I do like to see what you bring up in your about page translated in some capacity somewhere else on your portfolio. So to see that so clearly in your experiments work, that is pretty cool to have that connection.
Yeah, I hope that this point about like equitable access to information technology also shows up. It would be really interesting to see how that ideal informs your approach to work or what you're thinking about in terms of maybe not the projects that you do at work, right? You don't always have a choice there, but any projects that you do yourself are helpfully keyed into your interests, passions.
Okay, great. Any final words about this section? All right. Now I will leave it to you, reviewers. Which one would you click on? What stands out to you?
To me, it's either the first or the third. I like the typography in the first, and the third just has really bright colors, so it kind of yanks my eye.
All right, let's hop into this concept app then.
All right, we'll see if it coincides with what your ideas were about equity and inclusiveness.
Oh, I really like the visual layout of this.
Yeah, this is certainly the most unique one we've seen so far. One small thing, since you're from Brazil, this is just really cool to me. I can't speak another language, but I really appreciate that.
Well, I was going to say that this is 100% just copy pasted from your Behance. And very obvious.
It has
just the same
has
images.
that aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, that they're all placed images, that they're not like laid out digitally. Which I don't know. You don't have to be a developer, but for some people, like the images won't load in properly. There can just be various issues. You can't copy paste things. Can't really highlight stuff. Yeah, it's a little bit less usable.
100% agree. I think visually it looks great, but if you were to translate this into, I guess, an actual website instead of just an image, it would definitely help.
In a way, going through it now, even just on my small laptop screen, I am slightly overwhelmed to have to scroll through this to see even just the full screen of this mock.
Yeah, some of it's too big. And I don't know, there's a couple places where the grid feels kind of inconsistent and wonky. I'm noticing even as I just scroll through the first part.
This isn't, I feel like this doesn't communicate anything to me. Okay, this is more helpful, I think. Maybe I just missed it, but I feel like there's some missing context here that could help better ground your work. Okay, here's some objectives. Research. I'm wondering if you know, a lot of the other portfolios we've seen so far are pretty text heavy. I'm wondering if this could benefit from just some more context. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I do think, yeah, it's a little light on the process. It's very heavily focused on the final solution and the production side of things. So I think from a spectrum of you know, being super like UX heavy versus super visual, this is more so on the sort of like visual design side.
Mhm.
Yeah, we get like if we say that each of these images is like a page, we get like 2 pages of background and then like 20 pages of visual development and visual showcase.
And just really quickly to chime in here, I feel like this information, this kind of a design system can be truncated. It's a lot of scrolling just to see all the iconography and color palette and typography.
It's very Behance-y. But what I can say is that looking at what the context is and what this project is, it does seem to, again, align with what you said earlier about kind of inclusion and access, because it's centered around giving people like a more equitable access to like design mentorship and collaboration, it seems like. Connecting people with creative skills, yeah, and helping people develop the project. So I do feel like that aligns well to me, and it shows a consistency, which I really like.
Awesome. I know we're running a bit over time. This has been a really productive session, I think. Are there any final words for Christian before we kind of close off our event today?
I just want to say that for the Walk Arrows project, I just like that you're using a serif. It's a real nice serif. It's a nice break from constant sans. Just think these are some nice looking screens. I haven't looked much farther than it, but yeah, it looks nice.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Christian. That was really a great visual representation of your work. And thank you all for participating with us today. Holy crap, there are so many of you, and the event live chat is going off. I wish I had a secondary screen so I could have been participating more in this chat as well. That is always really cool to see. Big shout outs to Ben, Eugene, and Maggie today. You guys were just dropping knowledge, and I think a lot of it is really insightful and some that I'm certainly going to be bringing into my own portfolio iterations as well. On that note, I will leave it to you reviewers to have any final thoughts or notes, or just to say goodbye as we close off the event. Well done.
Yeah, I thought it was great to see all the work, and again, I really dislike boring things. If you ever see me pop up somewhere in Design Buddies Discord, I'm generally railing against things that look too much like every other thing that I see. So be unique. Like, let your weirdness fly. Don't put a wavy hand emoji and a hi there. Again, just try to do something special that's going to grab people's eyes, and that'll go a long way.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Think about your portfolio as you know, your personal brand, right? And really lean into that, because I don't think enough designers spend enough time thinking about it from that perspective.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to have to trouble you with one last thing, Eugene, since this is a super long scroll. If you could share that portfolio one more time, I'd really appreciate that personally. And I know everyone else in the chat would too. Awesome. And with that, we are going to end the event. I would love to see some hearts or big thank yous to our mentors and submitters today. That was really awesome. I'm happy that I got to be a part of it. Learned a lot. I'm excited for the next one coming next month with some new awesome mentors. Thank you guys.